Hello, everyone. It's John Kraska with Every Library and the Every Library Institute. We continue our last day of Banned Books Week 2025 with a very interesting conversation about, war in Syria, translating books from Arabic into English, and what it means to be publishing right now in the United States on these topics. The whole week of Banned Books Week events, on-demand recordings are available right now on Every Library Live on Facebook, Every Library Live on YouTube. This will be up right away as well. We hope that you have a good opportunity to engage in some very thoughtful discussions as we go along this week and over the next couple of weeks. Because right now, what's happening in the United States around book bans and censorship, around the erasure of different populations, about the suppression of ideas and conversations is an important topic for us to be engaging with, because libraries here in the United States and abroad are all about access to a wide range of ideas. So I've been saying all week that no one owns the First Amendment or the Constitution. It's how do we want to put this together. So today, for this conversation, I'm very thrilled to be bringing in two wonderful people, Samar Yazbek and Yasmina Jraissati. Samar, if you could please start your video too. Wonderful. So thank you. It is so good to see you both today. And it's a pleasure to be able to have a conversation with you about your books, or your book in particular. Let me take a moment to read your biographies, and then we'll begin with our questions. So Samar Yazbek is a Syrian writer, novelist, and journalist. Her novel, Where the Wind Calls Home, which is our topic for today, was a finalist for the 2024 National Book Award. Her novel, Planet of Clay, published by World Editions in 2021, was a finalist for the 2021 National Book Award. Her accounts of the Syrian conflict include A Woman in the Crossfire and The Crossing. Her work has been translated into multiple languages, and she has been recognized with numerous awards, notably the French Best Foreign Book Award, the PEN Oxfam Novlib PEN Pinter Award. She was recently selected to be part of the International Writers Program with the Royal Society of Literature. Samar, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much. Thank you to have me here with you, Van.
Very good. And then Yasmina Jraissati, pardon me, Yasmina. Let me try and make sure I got it. Jraissati. There we go. Jraissati.
Very good.
With a name, let me tell you, my last name, forget it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yasmina, you were very kind to me. Thank you. She is the founder of the Raya Agency, the first and leading agency promoting contemporary Arabic literature internationally. Her work has brought groundbreaking Arabic voices to readers worldwide, earning her 2 London Book Fair International Excellence Awards and the 2023 Saraj Rights Connection Award for fostering cross-cultural publishing. She also serves as publishing manager for Arabic and English at Storyside, part of the Swedish Storytel Group, helping shape the future of audio storytelling. Yasmina holds a PhD in philosophy and cognitive science, where her research explored the role of culture in cognition. Yasmina, we have a lot to talk about today too. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes. If it's all right, though, I'd like to begin with our colleague Samar about Where the Wind Calls Home. Samar, Where the Wind Calls Home, your novel, is a deeply evocative title. What does home mean in the context of this book, especially for characters who live with displacement and conflict?
Thank you very much. I will speak in Arabic, and I would like to thank Yasmina to translate this our conversation. And I think it's a good chance for all the people who can see us and listen to us now, to listening to our music now, our beautiful language. So. for مقام الريح أنا أعتقد أنه ما تقوله الرواية بحول الوطن هو العيش في الطبيعة، يعني هو العودة إلى الطبيعة في ظل الحرب. عالي عاد لعناصر الطبيعة الأولى، الريح، الهواء، الشجر، المطر، عاش في شجرة وجعل العناصر الطبيعة هي الوطن. هذا هو الوطن في ظل حرب دموية.
So the title in Arabic of the novel is Maqam al-Rih, so it refers exactly to the same meaning in English. And in this case, what she really wants to express is that the notion of homeland when it comes to Syria today. And in the context of the war, what she wanted to depict is homeland as a return to nature. So the Syrian nature that's always been there for its people. So the land, the trees, the rocks, the moon, the wind, things that have always been there and will remain there despite destruction. So that's basically the meaning she wanted to put in the word home in this novel.
And حقيقة هي أيضا شكل من أشكال الاعتراض على ما يفعله الكائن البشري في يعني على الحروب التي تقوم بين البشر. هو علي يعود إلى الطبيعة كعودة أولى للحياة.
So it's also a form of objection against what we as humans, and in Syria in particular in this case, have done to our world. So we've been destroying this place. So in a way, it's an invitation to return to the first homeland in a sense. صحيح هيك سمر؟
صحيح. Thank you.
Samar, this book portrays very brutal things. It's war, but it's also the resilience of the human spirit. What motivated you to write this book? I'm very interested in your own personal journey.
Actually, I like this question very much because all the times I ask myself why I did it. It was very difficult to have this conversation between me and between Ali, also my hero. So I will tell you. أنا قضيت سنوات طويلة عملي كصحفية وكأكتيفيست إنه أقوم بتوثيق الحرب، بتوثيق المجازر، بتوثيق الموت. يعني أنا بدأت هذا الكتاب، كتبته بداية كقصيدة شعرية ضد فظاعة الحرب. أريد أن أخترع من القبح جمال.
So basically, she has spent years documenting the war, recording testimonies as an activist, as a journalist, and she was surrounded by all this brutality, and she felt compelled to write what initially was more like a long prose poem. Basically, it was a poem initially, like an ode to life and to beauty. This is how the novel started.
Actually كمان حسيت إنه أنا منفية عن نفسي كروائية، لأنه هي كانت أحد أشكال المنفى في حياتي أني توقفت عن كتابة الأدب.
لحظة ما تقولي خلينا نلحق عليك شوي. I was telling her to give me time because I'm afraid to forget some of her words. So basically, she's saying that also this was a form for her of healing, I would say, because as an exilee, because she left Syria shortly after the revolution started, she had to leave. She felt exiled from herself, alienated from herself as a writer, because she had spent all these years documenting and writing, testimonies and nonfiction work, and so she needed to go back to this space of fiction as a way to find herself again. Really.
I have another. يعني it's very important to say that. إنه كمان علي كان هو أنا بشوفه ضحية، وكان في نظر العالم هو القاتل، فدفعني لكتابة هذا الكتاب إيجاد علاقة ما بين الضحية والجلاد.
And it was very important for her to also, it's Ali's character is what's really important here, because he, to the eyes of the world, Ali is a murderer. He's a Syrian soldier. He's part of the face of the regime that committed all these horrible crimes. But at the same time, he's a victim, and so she really needed to do justice to this very difficult situation and ambiguity around Ali's character.
So I would say, Samar, that knowing now that the book started as a poem makes a lot of sense to me as a reader. And the lyrical nature, the pacing of it, I think that's quite wonderful to know. Ali, early in the novel, there's the moment where he witnesses a funeral, and he's not sure even if it is his own funeral. And that transition from one life to another, also with you as someone who lives in exile, there's a reflective space that he goes through between life and death. Can you speak to the inspiration for that sort of literary approach to transition?
Yes. الحقيقة أنا كتير عشت الموت، عشت تحت الموت، خطر الموت، وكتبت عن الموت وعشت فإنه العلاقة مع الموت كانت دائمة في حياتي، خاصة في 15 سنة الأخيرة.
For the past 15 years, I've been in very close contact to death. I experienced it very closely. I saw it in its many faces very closely in the events. فيك تكفي؟
أنا بشوف الموت أحد الأسئلة الكبيرة اللي أنا عم بحاول أوجد جواب لها، لأنه الحرب بتخلي علاقتك مع الموت علاقة كتير سوريالية.
And this is one of the questions that really interrogate me and stay with me, and I really try to answer it because it makes the relationship to life very surreal in a way.
سورياليست يعني. بس انه انا فيني احكي بصراحه وبشكل كتير واقعي انه اكيد لاني انا شفت الموت كتير، شفت جنود ومقاتلين عم بيموتوا، شفتهم يعني. هو جاي من الالهام انه كيف حول الموت القبيح لهذا المشهد، فلاني شفت كتير.
No, I saw so much death, fighters, soldiers, so much death that this is where the inspiration comes from really deeply in a way that may sound very brutal, because how to transform these very brutal sights into something beautiful was one of the questions I was trying to answer with this novel.
يعني I insist انه انا كنت مصرة اعمل القبح بشكل اكتبه بشكل شاعري وله علاقة بالطبيعة.
I insisted on
قتال ضد الموت.
It's like fighting about, exactly. So talking about death is like fighting death, and I really insisted on focusing on death and turn it into something that we could see the beauty in.
There are certainly mystical, even tender parts of this story, and Ali's relationship with nature, whether it's the trees or the wind or the roots or the worms, and his connection with Umayruna, the spiritual woman of the village. I was taken by the sentence that said, "No one knows her age," and that sets a very, very clear picture in my mind of who she could be. Can you talk about that character, the Umayruna, and what she represents to you?
Yes, it presents a lot of for me. الحقيقة علي هو جاي من بيئة الجبل الساحل القادم من الطائفة العلوية، لازم نقول هذا الشيء، واللي هي ديانة باطنية تحتفي بالطبيعة.
I have to say that Ali comes from a rural part of the country, and he belongs to the Alawite community. And the Alawites have a very, it's a secret, basically, religion. I don't know how to say batiniye, but basically it's not explicit, the beliefs and the dogma, let's say. And it has a very deep connection with nature in its relationship to God.
والحقيقة أنه في الديانة العلوية النساء ما بيعلموهم الدين، فأنا اقتنعت بالخيال حميرونة هي التي امتلكت أسرار كل شيء والدين وكل شيء.
And in reality, the Alawite women are not taught the religion, so it's only reserved for men. And so that's why this character is a bit surprising and contradictory when you know the Alawite religion, because she holds the secrets of this religion. She is basically the gatherer of these secrets as a superior being in a way.
So I created يعني أنا خلقت الحميرونة كشخصية فعلا هي على المستوى التاريخي والسياسي غير موجودة. أنا خلقت ما هو يجب أن يكون، لأنه هي تاريخ النساء كلهم حقيقة. الحميرونة هي كل النساء الحكيمات اللي صنعوا التاريخ.
So basically, and I think that's what you were pointing at, John, that this character doesn't exist. So that's why she has no age, etc. And she wanted to summarize in Humayruna this, what should be actually, because women throughout history have been the carriers of secrets and of knowledge in many ways. And basically, justice needs to be done to them. And it has to be recognized that they play this role throughout history in that region. And this climaxes in this very mystical character.
That's a very
خاصة
please.
خاصة في العالم العربي، يعني في العالم العربي وخاصة بالحرب السورية، النساء هن اللي صنعوا الحياة في الحرب، وكانوا مختفيات. فهي هي الحميرونة كانت هي جزء من غنائية شعرية روائية لوجود النساء الحقيقي المغيب في العالم العربي كله.
And especially that in the Arab region in general, and specifically in the Syrian war, women were silenced. Although in the Syrian war, they were really the bearers of life in more than one meaning. They were very present for life. And so she had to pay tribute and to remind people in this poetic way of their place.
So forgive me, I do like to think that I pay attention to other religions than my own. But I was not aware of the Alawite division between men being able to practice and have the doctrine and women being excluded from it. That is a whole new insight for me about these characters in this setting. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So having this character of Ali, who is both a wanderer and someone who is trying to find home again. You spend time with his childhood, his games, and also his family, the conflicts and the domestic scenes between his parents. But that is to contrast, I would think, between the brutality of the war. But it isn't a pure contrast. There's every childhood is perhaps looked at with nostalgia or warmth, but yet there were realities in every childhood. Why was it important to you, Samar, to root Ali in those ordinary moments of childhood?
بدي أقول إنه كان مهم كتير أرجع أحكي يكون في بالسرد هذا التناقض بين جمالية روح الطبيعة، عناصر الطبيعة، وبشاعة الحرب.
It was crucial in the narrative of the novel that the contrast was drawn between the aesthetics of Ali's personality and the connection to nature, as opposed to the destruction and the ugliness of war.
يعني الحياة العائلية تبع علي اللي هي بتشرح، أنا كل الرواية تتحدث عن العنف، كل الرواية.
In fact, all the novel is tackling violence, is about violence.
وأنا كنت دائما أقول إنه الفن، الأدب، الرواية بالنسبة لي دائما هي قائمة على اختراع التعاطف الإنساني، وضع نفسك مكان الآخر.
And for her, art and literature in particular stands on the idea of allowing or enabling people's empathy. So being able to put yourself into somebody else's shoes, basically, or inhabit their experiences.
وحقيقة لما كنت كيف بدي أحكي عن ضحية هي يتحدث العالم عنها كلها إنها جلاد، من دون ما خلق هاي التناقضات والصراعات داخل عائلة فقيرة وبسيطة.
So how can I was the question basically. So how can I express this violence and develop a character who's seen by all as being a killer, basically, as a part of a soldier from the Syrian army, without getting into who he was inside his family.
لذلك كان من المهم جدا إنه أنا أحكي عن النقاط السوداء والخفية والتي تربط بين بشاعة ما يعيشه من عنف وبين جمال الطبيعة الهائل اللي صار هو بالنسبة له مثل الله يعني.
So it was very important for me to get into the details of the ugliness and the horror of the violence that he was experiencing and the beauty of the nature that to him was the equivalent of God in a way.
I don't know if I answered exactly what you mean. But
yes, I believe you did. So his values, his identity, very clear. Thank you. So the specific moment in time Syrian story that is Where the Wind Calls Home. How do you want to reach readers, Samar, who may not know much about Syria, though, and are learning about it during a time of conflict as opposed to a time of peace?
I think with the literature, it's not very important to know about the Syria. It's important to create the story. I think it's the literature. It's يعني أنا حاولت أعمل من قصة محلية شيء إنساني كبير عن العلاقة بين الحرب والإنسان والطبيعة.
I tried to do from something very specific, a specific story, a universal one that was about the relationship of man to violence and war and nature.
Yes, I think that the universal experience does come through very much, but it is, I'm not pushing back, I'm not questioning of what you're suggesting, but Syria and the Syrian childhood and the Syrian nature is a character in the story as much. It could be set in France, it could be set in Argentina, it could be set in, yes, but there is a Syrian quality to it.
Yeah. I think انه قيمه الادب بتنبع من محليته. بقدر ما بقدر احول شيء محلي دقيق وغير مفهوم ومعقد مثل الحرب السوريه الى ادب والى شعر والى روايه قادر انسان جالس في امريكا مثل ما انت قراتها تفهمها. فبعتقد هذا هو المهم.
The beauty of literature basically is exactly that you're able to go from very rooted local stories and within their complexities and sometimes opaque details like the Syrian war could be. From there, you're able to write a story that a reader like yourself can relate to. This is the beauty and the art of literature, and this is basically what she tries to achieve as a writer, and that's what matters.
And of course, the Syria all the time in my mind. So it's I am in exile. I'm in France, but all the time Syria in my mind. So it's my life. So
yes,
yeah.
You have been very beautiful with your personal and the political side of this story. The Where the Wind Calls Home is one that I believe should be read widely in the United States for the universality of it. And I thank you, Samar, for bringing that to us. I would like to ask if we could move on to a few questions for your colleague Yasmina as well.
Yeah.
Very good. Yasmina, and thank you for the help with the simultaneous translating. It's always a bit of a tightrope, but I
of course.
So Samar's work is often described in reviews and by other critics as bearing witness, which I think is a very powerful statement.
Mm-hmm.
From your perspective, you're an agent, you're a cultural advocate. How does literature from the Arab world challenge dominant narratives in the English-speaking world, and I would suggest create space for otherwise voices that are otherwise on the margins of the English-speaking world?
Yes, I mean, this is precisely why I became an agent, actually. So the focusing on Arabic literature in particular, so I really felt the need to have these voices heard, the voices that are on the margin, because you do hear some voices from the Arab world, but they tend to be more in a political setting, they tend to be more on the extremes. And so I really felt that it was important that stories about more ordinary people and beautifully said art forms basically could reach this audience. I mean, I know it sounds cliche, and all people who love books, tend to say that, but I've experienced it as a reader. Fiction has something so powerful because it's magic, really, in the way where you can connect with the author's inner space, like conceptually, but more importantly, emotionally. Finally, you relate. And what's very interesting is that suddenly when the emotions that the author is depicting become yours because you're experiencing them, like all these big cultural differences that you were so focused on become very trivial because suddenly you can understand the experience of the characters, you can understand their joys, their pains, their hopes. They're just people like you. And I think this is extremely powerful. And this is, to me, the only way, really, I might sound a bit radical, but the only way to support like other narratives than the dominant ones.
So the future of Arabic literature in country, but also in the English-speaking world, and not only print, but digital and audio. I mean, there's so much more opportunity for access now. What does that kind of access mean for reaching a new generation of readers?
I mean, I have to say that the Arabic book industry, if we can really call it industry, it faces a lot of challenges. So of course, digital might seem and has a lot of potential, but we're not there yet. And the print book travels with a lot of difficulty. We have real problems of distribution. So books are not present as much as they could be across different countries, across different markets, and sometimes within markets. And so therefore, like the industry doesn't really thrive as much as it could be. Apart from distribution, we have purchasing power differences across countries. We have a lot of censorship as well. And all of that leads to a lot of piracy, which obviously is not a good factor for the development of an industry. And all of this leads to less people being encouraged to write, less talent emerging. So I'm just trying to depict very quickly how the ecosystem doesn't really support the thriving of books. But despite that, of course, we see more and more writers. Things are shifting, but not necessarily at the same speed on every level. And of course, now, for example, the younger generation, like anywhere else in the world this time, is very focused on genre-specific literature. So we see a lot of appetite for horror, for thrillers, or for thrillers infused with horror, for fantasy. So these are the books that we see the younger generations really, absorbing. So for literature, it's a bit harder, I have to say, but it's probably the case everywhere, not just in our countries.
So this is just an inside business question, but is most of the rights conversations happening at Frankfurt, or are they happening in other international book fairs as well?
Well, Frankfurt, of course, remains the temple, I have to say, of rights. But recently, the Sharjah Book Fair, recently, it's been now it's been more than 10 years, actually. They've started a fellowship. And this has become a very important place for people to come to buy rights from Arabic or into Arabic, but also other languages. So I think the Sharjah Book Fair really played an important role in shedding more light on the region and having people come over, being more curious about publishers from the region. So this has become an important place as well for rights. But of course, yes, London Book Fair, like all of these places that everybody goes to, remain very important for our literature to travel.
Sure. So the art of translating from Arabic to English, from any language to any other language, but from Arabic to English, it's not just the words, it's the cultural context, it's the rhythm, the fact that Samar mentioned before that it was originally written as a poem and then became a long-form book. What do you see as either challenges or opportunities in translation?
So yes, definitely an art form. There's no doubt about this. I'm always amazed when I read a translation because it's different, but at the same time, I can hear Samar's voice there. Like there's something there that's very essential that's still there. So I find this very impressive and very moving in many ways. Well, for this book, for example, and that's what we discussed a bit earlier, for example, you weren't really aware about the Alawite detail, etc. So, and especially in this book, because it was thought as a poem, it's very minimalist in the elements that are put in. So you have very little contextual descriptions, you have very little cultural references that are made explicit. So at the same time, it makes it very interesting because you feel as a reader that there's so much more there that is not being said. So it makes the book feel very deep and very attractive. But of course, in translation, it was very difficult. And we were very concerned with Samar, how will translators understand these implicit references, in writing. And of course, there were long conversations with Samar and in every single language as to how to tackle these questions. Like it was clearly misunderstood in some cases. So it was, our fears were basically, valid, is what I want to say. But in the end, it worked, like in conversation, etc. So that was an opportunist book, despite the fact that a lot of it was unexpressed and inaccessible.
That's fascinating. The facility of language that is universal, and the story that is universal hear about Ali intersecting in that kind of way where there's still those sorts of barriers and challenges. I appreciate you sharing that insight, Yasmina. I'd like to be able to close today with one more question for our friend Samar. Samar, if I may, thank you. If you could speak directly to our readers and our listeners here in the United States who are encountering Syrian literature for the first time with your book, what do you want them to carry away with that?
With what? Sorry, I didn't understand, Yasmina. What you said?
Go ahead, Yasmina. Thank you.
هو السؤال إذا في قارئ أول مرة بيتعرف على الأدب العربي مع الكتاب مع هالرواية مقام الريح شو بتحبي إنه يتذكر آخر شيء؟
Thank you for this beautiful question. I didn't. المشهد الأخير لما علي بيطير على الشجرة، لأنه هيك بتمنى يكون مستقبل البشرية، محاولة للنجاة.
I'd love them to take with them the last scene of this book, which is when Ali flies on top of a tree, right. Because this is what this is what I wish for humanity, this kind of elevation and hope.
Yeah. That's a beautiful moment. So thank you both so much for this conversation with me today here on Every Library Live. It's been a real treat and a pleasure for me. Reading the book was a joy. And Where the Wind Calls Home, Samar, is a beautiful work. And Yasmina, thank you for helping to bring it to the English language world as well. So
my pleasure, my honor.
Thank you very much.
I wish you both good health and good day. We will be ending the event now, and I would like to speak to you afterwards. But we always wave goodbye when we do this because we are all on camera.
Yeah, bye.
Cheers.
Thank you, John.